Gently close your eyes. Deep breathing. We'll chant Om once together. Synchronize the chanting of Om with your exhalation. Breathe in. Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditamastu mavit vishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Gently open your eyes. We'll chant from verses 68 to 72 of chapter 2. Tasmadhyasya mahabaho,
Tasmadhyasya mahabaho,
Nigrihitani sarvashah,
Nigrihitani sarvashah,
Indriyanindriyarthebhyah,
Indriyanindriyarthebhyah,
Tasya prajna pratisthita,
Tasya prajna pratisthita,
Ya nisha sarvabhutanam,
Ya nisha sarvabhutanam,
Tasyam jagati sanyami,
Tasyam jagarti sanyami,
Yasyam jagrati bhutani,
Yasyam jagrati bhutani,
Sa nisha pashyato muneः,
Sa nisha pashyato muneः,
Apuryamānamachala pratishtham,
Apuryamānamachala pratishtham,
Samudramāpah pravishanti yadvat,
Samudramāpah pravishanti yadvat,
Tadvat kāmayam pravishanti sarve,
Tadvat kāmayam pravishanti sarve,
Sashantimāpnoti na kāmakāmi,
Sashantimāpnoti na kāmakāmi,
Vihāya kāmānyas sarvān,
Vihāya kāmānyas sarvān,
Pumāmscharati nisprihah,
Pumāmscharati nisprahah,
निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः
निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः
स शान्तिमधिगच्छति
स शान्तिमधिगच्छति
एषा ब्राह्मी स्थितिः पार्थ
एषा ब्राह्मी स्थितिः पार्थ
नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यति
नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यति
स्थित्वा स्यामन्तकालेऽपि
स्थित्वा स्यामन्तकालेऽपि
ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति
ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति
Hari Om, and a very good day to all of you. So we have started this verse number 71, wherein he is giving a lot of messages as far as your sadhana is concerned. Now, if you take the ancient wisdom, the great yogis and siddhas have divided the ancient wisdom into two. That is, when I say they have divided them into two, not two different categories, but two different applications, we can say. That is, you have, as ancient wisdom consists of various principles related to the individual purification, and principles related to your life and living. Now, based on the application of these principles, they have categorized this into two. They have divided this into two. One is the external application in the world, and the other is the internal application to purify yourself. So throughout the Bhagavad Gita, you will find Lord Krishna always talking from these two standpoints. One idea or one thought he'll give about internal development, and then again he'll come back to the external application. That is why Arjuna gets totally confused. In the 3rd chapter, he asks a question. We'll be seeing that soon. And the same question he repeats it in the 4th chapter also. That is, what he asks is, if you are saying, on one hand, you're saying you gain knowledge, you gain wisdom, all that is pertaining to the inner development. On one hand, you're saying that. On the other hand, you are saying act in the world. So this is what is confusing, he says. Actually, he asks Krishna, he says, you tell me one thing decisively. Should I now focus on my inner development and gain more knowledge? Or should I focus on external action? Tadekam vada means you tell me one thing very clearly. You desire and tell me, Krishna, he says. Now Krishna doesn't tell him a clear answer. He doesn't tell him you focus on this or that, because that cannot be said. What Krishna is trying to teach Arjuna is that both are two facets of your life. This is the message which you need to absorb. See, you have two facets of your life. One is the inner life, inner world, which starts from your physical body, and then you have your pranas, you have your emotions, you have thoughts. It's a very vast world. We are just saying emotions, but different kinds of emotions, different kinds of thoughts, ideologies, beliefs. And then you have those emotions at the conscious level, at the subconscious level, and then at the further deeper levels of the mind. So like that, it is a very vast universe existing within you. So that is one facet of your life. And then of course deep within you have the karmas, then the soul. The other facet of your life is your interaction with the world. So as a sadhak, it will be good if you understand that both these facets are very important to you in your life. Arjuna, we are going to see that he finds it very difficult to understand that, because he is a warrior, and in the army they say don't think, just do or die. That's all. Because if each one starts thinking there in the battlefield, then there will be chaos. You will not be able to act spontaneously. Therefore, what the general says is, I will desire and tell you, do this, now you just have to do it. So Arjuna is used to that kind of a functioning. Now here, Krishna is actually not asking Arjuna to do anything. In the sense, he is not giving a specific instruction, do this or do that. He is giving him a wide variety, and then he says, whatever appeals to you, you start practicing, you start integrating all these things into your life. Now, this is something which Arjuna is not used to. That is why he is getting confused. Arjuna's confusion is representative of a common person's confusions. So when you approach the scriptures, let's say the Bhagavad Gita, and through the yogic approach, as you are gaining the deep wisdom, you may also get confused. So right from beginning, as a sadhak, if you understand this clearly, that there are two facets of your life. One is your inner world, the inner facet, and the other is your interaction with the world. Both are equally important. Now there are some people who say the inner growth is more important than your external life. That is not true. See, many people actually give a wrong message when they say that, just forget the world, leave the world, and focus on God. Yes, those kinds of statements have been given in the scriptures. Even Krishna himself gives those, makes those kinds of statements. but only in a particular context. Because what you need to understand is basically Krishna is telling Arjuna not to run away from the battlefield. So even if he means leave the world, obviously he doesn't mean physically. This is a basic logic. If Krishna is preaching this ancient wisdom, and the ancient wisdom is talking about leaving the world, then there is no necessity for the Bhagavad Gita, because Arjuna wanted to leave the battlefield, leave the world and go away. Why give him the Bhagavad Gita? He could have just sent him away. So the fact that Krishna is talking to Arjuna, who wants to leave the world, that itself shows that this ancient wisdom insists that you should not leave the world. You should not shirk your responsibilities. Why should you be born somewhere and then leave it? There is no meaning. So obviously there is a purpose for your birth. You need to work out your karmas. You need to purify yourself through actions. So when we talk of the inner facet, it is the application of these higher principles with respect to your personality. How do you purify yourself internally? Then when we talk about the external facet, it is about how you act in the world and at the same time not gather the inner dirt, not accumulate more karmas. How do you go on purifying yourself even when you are acting in the world, so that all your karmas get exhausted and you become one with the infinite? So invariably what happens is the mind gets attached to one of these two facets. See, if you observe yourself, sometimes when you become very inspired by the concept of self-realization, purification and all that, there is a chance that you may get disconnected from your activities. You should be careful. The moment you find that, then you should stop the internal sadhana and practice the external sadhana. Sometimes you may find that you will get totally involved with whatever activity which you're doing, that you will lose your poise, you will lose your peace of mind, you will lose the spiritual energy which you are gaining through your regular sadhana. At that time, you should immediately pause there and intensify your internal practices. So as a sadhak, if you learn to balance these two, you will grow in this path. What is the path? I've been explaining to you last few weeks. The path is from moving from a kama kami to a sthita prajna. Kama kami means one who is a slave to one's own mind, one's own desires. Sthita prajna is one who is free, who is a master, who has achieved the ultimate self-mastery by attuning himself or herself with the infinite. So in this path of moving from a kama kami to the sthita prajna, you need to maintain this balance. Whenever your focus moves too much towards the inner aspect, to that extent where it starts disturbing your external activities, it does not allow you to do your duties properly, then you need to practice the external application of this wisdom. And whenever you find that you're getting too involved with the activities, that you're losing sight of the very purpose in life, you need to emphasize on the internal application of these principles. That is why if you see this entire Sthita Prajna portion has been so beautifully designed, where one verse he talks about the inner development, and the next verse he talks about the external application, how the Sthita Prajna interacts with the world. This even before you go into the specific messages, just an overview itself will give you this message. And anyway, if you fail to absorb this message here in all these verses, that's going to keep coming again and again, because in the 3rd chapter Arjuna will ask this question. And Krishna's answer is very strange. See, Arjuna asks him, should I act or should I focus on my internal development? Should I gain knowledge? Tell me. He doesn't tell him act or gain knowledge. He gives a roundabout answer. When I say he's giving a roundabout answer, actually it's not that he is beating around the bush. The question which Arjuna is asking itself is wrong. It is like, when you're breathing, you have one aspect which is inhalation. And then you have the other aspect which is exhalation. So inhalation, whatever you take in, and exhalation, whatever you give out. Now supposing a person asks you, what should I focus on? Should I focus on inhalation or exhalation? Tell me very clearly, tell me one thing. Should I do inhalation or exhalation? What will be your answer? You will say you have to do both. Now that person gets highly confused. He says, see, you're confusing me. It will be easy if you can give me simple instructions. Should I inhale or should I exhale? A straightforward answer cannot be given to that, because the question itself is wrong. The question is stemming from an ignorance, a state of ignorance, where the questioner is unable to understand that these two are two facets of breathing. So what these great masters are saying is that you have to breathe. Sometimes you will have to inhale, sometimes you will have to exhale. Now when all should I inhale, when should I exhale? If you ask that also cannot be very clearly defined. You need to learn to balance your inhalation and exhalation for your breathing to be perfect. Similarly, you need to create a balance between your inner sadhana and external sadhana. Then only you will become a balanced personality. You will grow spiritually. See, spirituality is all about balance. So that is why I keep saying, it doesn't matter what culture you're coming from, it doesn't matter what country you're coming from, it doesn't matter what religion you're coming from. These things are all fine, but if you can learn these eternal principles, and not merely learn the principles per se, but also use the yogic approach, which lays emphasis on applying these principles for internal development and to perfect your external transactions with the world. So if you can apply this yogic approach and learn both of these, you be wherever you are, it does not matter, whatever culture you're following and all that, you will move in this path of self-transformation. From a kami, you will start getting transformed and you will be moving towards becoming a sthita prajna. So in verse number 70, he was talking about the inner state, inner development. Now here he's talking about the external application. It is the same peace. See, the theme is Shantihi, which is the core of spirituality. But it is not enough if you're peaceful when your eyes are closed alone. That is one aspect. But when your eyes are open, when I say your eyes are open, I mean in a poetic way, that is when you're acting in the world, then also you should be able to maintain your peace. Then only you have achieved perfect self-mastery. When you're driving a car, it is not enough if you're just driving on a road where there is absolutely no traffic. You're changing all the gears, your clutch, brake, the accelerator, everything you're doing fine. Okay, nowadays a lot of automatic cars are there, but even that you will have to do certain basic things. So all that you're doing, but that is only one aspect. The other aspect is when you are in the midst of traffic, you should still be able to drive properly. That is when you can say that I have mastered the skill of driving. So in the yogic approach, what the guru does is he calls the students and makes them do intense sadhana for a few weeks, and then he says, now go back to the world and practice them. Because it is only when you practice all this in your life, in your field of activity, in your family, everywhere, the real purification will happen. And then when you are ready, he'll further he'll give certain higher principles, the higher energy, he will increase the energy. And then again, leave the students to apply this energy in their lives. That is so important. So the external lifestyle doesn't make a person spiritual at all. Please understand this. It is how intelligently you are balancing these two aspects, the inner aspect and the external aspect. In the third chapter, Krishna will be giving these two aspects of the ancient wisdom very beautifully. In one verse, he will say, Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Skill in action is yoga. Dexterity in action. That is only one aspect. Merely skill in action cannot be yoga. Then in another verse, he says, Samatvam yoga uchyate. Means the balance of mind, the inner development is yoga. So when you combine these two, you get a perfect idea of what this yogic approach is, what this ancient wisdom is all about. So, what is he saying in this verse? Vihaya kaman yah sarvan. That person, yah means whoever it may be, sarvan puman charati. So, vihaya sarvan kaman. See, this is put in a poetic way, so I am just converting it into prose now. Vihaya sarvan kaman means having abandoned all the kama, which means the uncontrolled desires, the weaknesses of the mind. moves about without craving. Charati means moving about, nisprihaha, and then nirmamaha, without a sense of mindness, without possessiveness. Nirahankaraha, nirahankaraha means ni ahankaraha, without any ego. Saha shantim adhigacchati, he attains peace. He is able to number one, maintain a state of peace, whatever peace he has, and he is also able to grow further spiritually till he attains the highest, which is infinite peace. So last week I had given you an overview of this verse. Now we'll go into the specifics. We will go as deep as you can absorb. If you ask me whether I am explaining everything which is there in each of these verses, to be very honest with you, the answer is no. Now you may wonder, so much you are explaining, sir, this is not the full 100% messages of these verses, is it? Definitely no. There is much more than what I am explaining also. But if everything is given like that, you will not be able to absorb. So depending upon your absorption capacity in the yogic approach, things will be revealed. So first of all, yaha saha. So last week I did bring this to your notice, because throughout the Sthita Prajna portion he is using this combination of yaha, saha, yasya, tasya. You know, we kept on seeing, no, in many verses, tasya prajna pratishtita, tasya prajna pratishtita. It's all the same combination only. So whoever it may be, that person, if he or she does all these things, if that person fits into this criteria, then that person can grow spiritually. So this yaha saha is a very powerful phrase which is being used not only in the Bhagavad Gita, but in all the scriptures. They use this to smash this concept of exclusivity. That is, people think that certain individuals alone can evolve spiritually. So if only certain people can evolve spiritually, then this entire study of the Gita itself becomes a waste of time. This is meant for anyone to progress. In one of the later chapters, Krishna will be saying this directly. The meaning of yaha saha, he will be giving later on. He'll say, it doesn't matter where you are, even if you have committed a lot of sins. Let us say a person has committed a lot of sins. Sins here means negative actions. But if that person takes a resolve that I want to grow spiritually, I want to do sadhana, and if he genuinely surrenders to the higher, he says that person will get the higher grace because of that firm resolve, of that intention, bhavana. I want to purify myself. So he goes to that extent of saying, even if a person has committed the worst sin, if he decides to change, then he will receive the grace of God. But the key there is the decision to change. Not just sitting sitting at a place in a lazy way and saying, I have decided to change. It's not that. Deciding to change means the willingness to put in the effort to change. See, some people, they say, sir, I want to change. But any sadhana you give, they don't practice. It means you don't want to change. So when we talk of bhavana, a bhavana which does not come into the action is no bhavana at all. You can't say, I have the bhavana of kindness with me, but externally I am all the time harsh with everyone. Then you are misusing this philosophy. Oh, I want to realize God. Okay, what should I do? Get up and do sadhana. That you will not do. But sir, I am having a very, very intense bhavana. I am so genuine. I want to, realize God. Those two things don't go together. So, your attitude and your action should go together, should be aligned. If you claim any kind of bhavana, that should be shown in your action also. This is what a guru sees. Just because a student comes and says, oh, I surrender to you, master, please teach me. Immediately the teacher will not get carried away by that. He will see whether that student has number one, right bhavana, and how can that bhavana be measured? Is that bhavana making the student perform actions consistent with that bhavana? This is what the teacher will observe. So I'll give you a very simple example. You're watching these sessions. Now, earlier when these sessions were in the auditorium and all that, we used to start bang at 7 a.m. Indian Standard Time. So you used to come there and listen. Now it is online. Now what is your bhavana? Are you able to stick to a time? See, sometimes it may not be 7, but you decide your time and are you able to stick to that? If it is preferable, as far as India is concerned, on a Sunday there is no necessity. I don't see any reason why you can't stick to this time, which where it has been set. If it is outside India, I understand the time zone differences and all that. That is a practical reason. But otherwise, I am talking of the discipline. So the moment it is available, it's a test for the mind. It is available. So let me see it later. Don't give room for that. Yaha saha, actually, if you go deep into that, what he's trying to say is, if you are disciplined, if you fulfill all these all this criteria, then alone you can grow spiritually. I am giving discipline as an example. It is not restricted to that, but just as an example. So when you give room to your mind, see, you may say, oh, my bhavana is to absorb the ancient wisdom and grow and all that. But what about your actions? Now, one day, if you are unwell, and let us say you sleep off or something, that is not what I am talking about. I am talking about on a consistent basis. See, when I say 7 a.m., these sessions are going to be there, there is an inbuilt discipline if you want to follow that. Because if you want to be fresh in the morning, then you need to sleep a little early the previous night itself. And if you want to sleep a little early previous night, you can't overload your stomach and then sleep if you want to have a good sleep. So all those things are included in the simple time which has been fixed, 7 a.m. It is a discipline for you to follow. Yaha saha, whoever follows whatever is being set by the Guru, now that person will get the full benefits. So when you don't follow what is being given fully, then to the extent you follow, to that extent you will receive benefits. Let us take it that way. It is not 0 or 100, but it is relative. So this yaha saha is such a wonderful principle which combines your intention or bhavana with your action or efforts. So they both should not be divorced from each other. Don't say I am very sincere in my bhavana, but I am insincere in my efforts. I remember long back, that is, I am talking of many years back, we used to have certain sessions early in the morning at 6:30 a.m. So there was a person who used to come at 6:45. So one day I was talking about punctuality and I was saying, see, you should not come after the Guru comes. You should always be there before. That is only the hallmark of a good student. It is given in our Shastras, So the discipline. So after the lecture, he came and met me and he said, no sir, the reason why I am unable to come at 6:30 is this. So many reasons he was giving. Now I didn't say anything because there's no point in talking to a person who is convinced, about what he or she is doing. When the moment the person gets into justification, it means that person doesn't want to change. So I just kept quiet. After a while, I changed the timings to 6:45 for certain practical reasons. The most interesting part is, he started coming at 7 o'clock. And then after a while it was further changed to 7 a.m. because some of the sadhaks were coming from far away and they were not, they were coming through public transport and they were saying that we are unable to come at 6:30 because of that. That is a practical reason. So considering their request, we kept it at 7. I said more than 7, let's not go on diluting it. Now the most interesting part is this person started coming at 7:15. So one day when he came to meet for some other issue, I just explained this to him. See, when the lecture was at 6:30, you came at 6:45. It means you are able to come at 6:45. Some reason you were giving. Now when the session was kept at 6:45, why did you start coming at 7? Earlier you were able to come at 6:45. Now when it is at 7, you are coming at 7:15. Can't you see the weakness of the mind? It hit him actually that day, because the problem which he had come to me with was many things in his life were getting delayed. His marriage was getting delayed. He lost his job and he was looking for another job, that was getting delayed. Many things in his life were getting delayed. So he was asking me, sir, why is it that things in my life are getting delayed? I explained to him, because you are creating that energy. When it is kept at 6:30, you are coming at 6:45. You are You are the creator of your destiny. 6:45 means you're coming at 7. 7 means you're coming at 7:15. So all along you are creating the energy of delay, and that energy is coming back to you in your life. So if you want a solution to all this, now change things from within. Let your intention and action merge into one. Let not your action be divorced from the intention which you are claiming. So when you practice the union between your bhavana and action, that is when you have mastered this principle of yaha and saha. It's a very deep sadhana message which he is giving. So on one hand, it looks so simple. Whoever it is, that person can grow spiritually and realize. In between is the key. Whoever it is who does all these things, that person is qualified. So he is not differentiating based on caste or creed or religion or culture or country, or is all these divisions he is not making. But when it comes to bhavana, he says there a division has to be made. A person who doesn't have the right bhavana cannot reap the full benefits. This is not partiality. Actually, this is an encouragement for the sadhaks to build a very strong bhavana. And remember, bhavana has no meaning when you don't put it into action. Oh, I am thinking of taking care of my family. But practically what are you doing? Nothing. So to people who claim a very good bhavana, but externally, you give justifications for your opposite action, I will just ask a simple question. When you are hungry and you want to eat food, will you say, I want to eat food, and will you just keep quiet? When you are hungry and you want to eat food, that will be followed by the action of eating food. Yes or no? When you are sleepy and you want to rest, that will be followed by the action of sleep. Similarly, when it comes to sadhana, if you say that I am hungry for this higher wisdom, I want to grow spiritually, that will be followed by qualities like discipline, consistency in your sadhana. All these things will come. To the extent it is not reflecting in the actions, understand to that extent the bhavana is not there. So in the Upanishads, this principle has been given in a very simple way. It says, whoever seeks God shall get God. That's all. By mere seeking, you can become one with the infinite. But that one word seeking, so many principles are ingrained in that. One simple statement which he makes. It looks simple, but when you unravel the deeper messages, it gives the entire philosophy of life. Because when he says seeking, he doesn't mean half-hearted seeking. You're saying, I want the infinite. On the other hand, you're very lazy. Then you're not wanting infinite 100%. Your energies are getting frittered away. So when you master this yaha and saha, you will start gathering all your energies. You will become very, very focused. In the previous verse we saw, I was telling you about the principle when a pure person seeks something, the Ichcha Shakti. This is one of the aspects of Ichcha. Ichcha Shakti has many aspects. This aspect you need to understand. Ichcha Shakti means a very strong bhavana in wanting something. And bhavana means that will manifest as actions, whatever actions are required to acquire that object. So if you master this yaha saha, which is the union between the intention and actions, the bhavana and the karma, then you will gain the power to achieve anything you want in life. Because when you want something, you will be very focused. So you will have to clip off all the opposite forces. See, when you say I want to achieve something, there are so many other forces which will be pulling you away from that path, path of achievement. So whether you are successful or not depends upon how much you are able to remove all those opposite factors and focus on whatever you want. That is being sincere. That is truly putting in efforts. So the previous week I had explained yaha and saha from the standpoint of anybody can spiritually develop. In the sense there is no partiality here. But now I'm giving you the deeper message. When it is said anybody can develop spiritually, that doesn't mean that you can just laze around and you can do whatever you want and still you will achieve spiritually. See, remember one thing. If you want a change in your life, you need to bring about a change in your pattern of thinking, in your actions, in your intentions, everything. Because these are the factors which are creating whatever it is which you don't want in your life. And with the same set of thinking and let us call it bhavana. With the same bhavana, you are unable to get a solution. So unless you change it, how can you get a solution? If you are operating from the same level of thinking, you can never get a solution to your problems. That is why whenever someone says, I have this problem, I have that problem, I always ask them, are you watching the Sunday discourses regularly, consistently? There itself, some of them say, no sir, I watch it, I was watching, but then in between, then nothing can be done. Yaha saha. It is not about whether the master likes a student or not. All these personal likes cannot fetch anything for the student. The student has to fit into this criteria. Then are you doing the Yoga Sankirtan sadhana, your daily sadhana consistently? There many people say no. I tell them first do that. Because if you do all that, your problem itself will get dissolved. If after doing all the sadhana, there is some block, then that can be handled. But the basic sadhana itself, if you're not doing, if you're not fitting into the yaha saha category, but you want all the results, how is that possible? So yaha is the starting, saha is the end, but in between lies the secret for the sadhaks. So absorb that message. So when we say that yaha saha means irrespective of your religion, irrespective of your country, nationality, irrespective of your caste, creed, that is a generalized message for everyone. But for deeper sadhaks, I think you would have crossed that stage. Those of you who are watching these sessions on a consistent basis, for you, you should not be happy with that message. This is the real message. So what is the sadhana tip which you need to follow? Right now, just find out what is my intention and what are my actions? Are they are they in sync? I am saying I want to be healthy, but what about my actions? Am I doing my exercises properly? Am I eating the right kind of food, or am I overeating? Am I eating the proper time, or am I indisciplined in my eating? Find out. If your actions are not in sync with your bhavana, then means you are not following this yaha saha principle, the sadhana principle. So your results will not be according to what you're seeking. Oh, I want to be financially independent. Supposing that is your bhavana, intention. Then look at your actions. Are you being a spendthrift? Are you keeping your expenses well under your income? Or are you unable to control your desires, that is kamaha, that you're taking too much of, too many loans and you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself? Because the more loans you take, the more are your liabilities. You have to keep the working in a stressful way, which in turn will reduce your productivity to earn your effectiveness in action. So find out. One hand, it's not enough if you say, I want to be financially independent, I want to be wealthy. Are your actions in line with this? Oh, I want to succeed in my career. What about your actions? Are you able to consistently perform your duties to the satisfaction of your higher ups? This is very important. Many people who are not successful in their career, they keep blaming their bosses. They say the boss is not listening to me. If the boss has to listen to you, then you will be the boss, no? See, first you should understand your role. In an office, you may be a boss to a few people and then you may have to report to somebody else. Now that person is not going to listen to you. You will have to listen to that person and conform your activities according to what the expectations of the management are. So are you doing all that? So if you're not doing all that, but you're saying I want to grow in my career, again you are creating opposite forces. So if you can take some time off today and examine your life based on this principle which I've given you, the dichotomy between your bhavana and actions. If you're not getting some desired result in any area, take up that. It will become even more simple. I am not financially settled. Now ask yourself, do I want to be wealthy? Some people will say, no, I don't want to be wealthy. Then it is up to you. But I don't see any reason why you should not want more abundance in your life. See, that itself actually is a way of fooling your mind, when you say, I don't want wealth. See, spirituality is a state of neutrality. You should go for more positive things in life, because nowhere in the scriptures they have said, don't acquire things from the world. They only say, don't acquire things from the world in an adharmic way, in an unrighteous way. Don't get lost in that. You have a higher purpose. This is what is being said. So ask yourself, yes, I want to be wealthy. Now, if the situation is not like that practically, why? What are my actions? Are my expenses well below my income? Invariably, you will find that your expenses will be more than your income. You will be living on loans. And unfortunately, today, this concept of credit cards and all that, that is only that is only increasing this weakness of a person's mind. I am not saying don't use credit card, but you should use that in a very disciplined way. In 99% of the people use credit cards because they are unable to control their own desires. They are unable to keep their expenses within their income. You should use credit card for convenience. I can't carry cash all the time, therefore I am carrying a card. That is different. If you don't have that discipline, then don't use a credit card, use a debit card. At least that will bring a forced discipline, because only to the extent you have money in the bank, you will be able to use that card. So find out what your actions are. If you say, my relationship in the family, let us say with my children or with my spouse is not okay, now see your actions. Are you spending quality time with them? Are you giving them the feeling of importance? Not merely externally, but from deep within. Are you giving unconditional love, or are you all the time crying and complaining? See, supposing a person is constantly crying and complaining, now how can he expect the other person to respond positively? So find out the dichotomy between your intention and action. Then you will get a solution. Do those activities which will support your bhavana, and work on building a bhavana which will support your activities. This is a powerful sadhana principle which is being given to you. Now I have given you many practical examples so that it becomes easy for you. More than this, now you work out in the different areas of your life. So even spiritual development, I want to grow spiritually. Am I sticking to the discipline? Am I watching the Sunday sessions at a particular time every Sunday? Am I doing the personal sadhana, yoga sankirtan on a consistent basis every day? Am I putting in efforts to practice all these principles in life? Look at your actions. If your actions are in line with this, then you're fitting in this yaha saha category. You're fulfilling all the criteria. So when your actions are in line with your intentions, then you don't need to ask for any special blessing and all that. The guru is automatically attracted to that student who is sincere. When I say who is sincere, who has a sincere bhavana, I mean who has resolved this dichotomy between action and bhavana. When you say something, you should mean it. Otherwise, don't say it. When you do some action, you should mean it. Mean it means internal bhavana. Saying or acting is an external factor. So when we start off the session, I always say, Hari Om. Hari Om means bowing down to the divinity within each and every one of you. Because that supreme principle is present in everyone, That is how we start off, Hari Om. And a very good day to all of you. That bhavana should be there. Without the bhavana, if I am just uttering those words, Hari Om, very good day to all of you. Now there is no power, there is no meaning to it. So whatever you are feeling, put it into action. Whatever actions you are doing, build that bhavana, feeling behind them. And ensure that I am talking of the positive bhavana and positive action. See, first determine what is positive and what is negative. Nobody needs to tell you, you yourself will know. For example, if you are harsh with your spouse, that is negative. If you are loving with your spouse, that is positive. So you decide based on simple factors, what is positive, what is negative. And then Choose all the positive actions, the positive intentions, and now go about uniting them. That is yoga. Yoga means huge, union. So it is union of many, many things. From the ultimate level, it is union between the finite and the infinite, the Jivatma and the Paramatma. But from relative levels, there are many, many aspects where you can unite. So this is one such aspect, uniting the intention, the bhavana with the action. So I put it in a very simple way last week, and I said only criteria is you should be sincere and you should put in all the efforts. But this is the depth of that. So don't go about complaining that you are not getting whatever you want in life. Look into these factors. Remember, a sadhak, a yogi is one who does not keep complaining. Rather, he creates his or her life. The sadhak creates his or her life by practicing these principles. You are the creator of your destiny. Write it and keep on underlining that in your mind. You are the creator of your destiny. It is through your bhavana and through your actions you are creating your destiny. You are creating your life. No planet is creating your destiny. No outside force is creating your destiny. You have to master your destiny by mastering your bhavana and actions, by bringing about a union between these two. That is the power of yoga. What a powerful principle this is, So, see, whenever every aspect comes, I'm going into the depth of it and giving you the practicality of it. So, you pick that up and you start practicing that principle, you will find that your life will start changing. You will start creating a life according to what you want. So, if you don't follow this principle, what will be the effect? That also I'll tell you. Either you will be a dreamer in life. Some people keep on dreaming. I want to become this, I want to become that. They don't do anything about all that. Or you will become a complainer. See, dreaming happens when you have the hope. Oh, I hope this will happen. So you're living only on hopes. In spirituality, we don't live on hopes. We are very practical. We live on facts, on realities. So either you become a dreamer, with the hope of achieving these things when actually you are not acting, or you will become a complainer. When you actually don't get those things which you are dreaming about, then you start complaining. You say, oh, I am such a good person, yet I am not getting these things in life. It is, why am I not getting all this? Because my boss is favoring another person, because of this person, because of that. You start complaining about various external factors. Generally, your complaints are always about others except yourself. So neither should you be a dreamer, nor should you be a complainer. That is the sadhana principle of yoga, of the yogic approach. Be realistic. What is being realistic? Being in the present. Action and attitude. Bhavana and karma. Engage both the bhavana and karma in your life. you will become successful. When I say bhavana, here the right bhavana and the right actions, that is understood. He'll be covering this in greater depth in chapter 3. As I told you, as I am explaining these verses, I am also preparing you to understand the deeper imports of the next chapter. See, if you notice in the yogic approach, there is one thing which we follow. Whenever we do one verse, a lot of preparation is also being done for you to absorb the messages in the next verse also. Similarly, as one chapter is ending, the preparation is being given to absorb the messages of the next chapter also. That is how we create a beautiful flow. The flow of energy will be there. The energy which can transform you completely. So we'll stop with this today. Before we go to the meditation, I will take up some questions. Dear Shri Yogishri, Aneka Koti Namaskaram Guruji, you alluded to purifying the soul or Atma. Isn't the Atma already pure and nothing can contaminate it? Isn't it our karma that determines our destiny? Thank you very much for the clarification, and apologize if I misunderstood what was said. See, I have mentioned many a times that there is no necessity to apologize when you don't understand something or when you misunderstood something, because it is not a crime. This is the path of growth. So whenever you have clarifications and doubts, feel free to ask, and it is my duty to clarify your doubts. See, you should apologize not necessarily to a teacher, to yourself, whenever you have acted out of tamas, whenever you have been tamasic, lazy, or when you become arrogant out of ego and all those things, that time apology will help you. But in this case, there is no necessity to apologize. It's not a mistake. So the question is very simple. We always talk about purification of the soul. So you are asking, isn't the soul already pure or ever pure, and our karmas are only determining our lives? The answer to that is yes and no. See, it all depends on from which level you are approaching this idea. See, in the ancient wisdom, there are two levels. One is the absolute level and the other is a relative level. So some statements are made from the absolute level. Some statements are made from the relative level. If you mix up these two levels, then that will cause a lot of confusion. So when it is said that the soul is always pure, that is said from the absolute level. But when it comes from a relative level, the soul has acquired impurity. That is the Jivatma. That is the meaning of Jivatma, individual. So Atma means soul. Paramatma means the infinite soul. Jivatma means the individual soul which has acquired impurity. So when we talk from the absolute level, we say the Atma is never impure. It is always pure. So that is meant for your inspiration and the meditation, the higher sadhana. Whenever it is said that the soul has to be purified, that is a relative statement which is being made. The soul which has acquired the karmas, and therefore the Jivatma has to be purified and released. So this mixing up of levels is a common problem which sadhaks face. It is not only with respect to this question, but you will find that many issues come up when you mix up levels. Say, I'll give you an example. On one hand, it is said the world is an illusion. There is no happiness in the world. All the happiness is inside. On the other hand, the same Krishna is telling Arjuna, now win this war and enjoy the kingdom. If there is no happiness in the world, if this whole world is an illusion, then why is he asking him to enjoy? When it is said that this world is an illusion, there is no happiness in the world, that is from the highest level. When it is said you enjoy the kingdom, that is from the relative level, the level at which Arjuna is right now. So when you mix up these two levels, then that will cause a lot of confusion. See, supposing, let us say you are going through a dream, and in the dream, you approach a guru, the dream guru. Let us say Yogeshri himself is there in the dream. Not this Yogeshri, but in the dream Yogeshri, okay. Now you go to him and ask him what is the purpose of this life. It's all happening in the dream. And then he tells you your real purpose is to wake up. This is all nothing but a dream, an illusion. And you're so inspired. And then you say, thank you Yogeshri, and you're walking back home. And as you're walking back, let us say a tiger comes and chases you. So now you start running. And as you are running, you take your cell phone and you give a call to Yogeshri in the dream. And you ask him, sir, a tiger is chasing me. What should I do? He says, run fast, run fast. I'm running fast, but the tiger is still, it's catching up on me. Then the Yogeshri says, do you just find out whether there is any tree nearby? You say, yes, there is a big tree there. Now quickly go and climb up the tree. To which, immediately you ask him, sir, but didn't you say that this entire thing is a dream? This is an illusion. Then why are you asking me to climb up the tree? Now, what will that guru advise? He will say, first you climb up the tree, then we will discuss about these things. There is no time. Because if you are at that level to say that the entire thing is a dream, then even the tiger is also a part of the dream only. Then what is the problem then? So that was given for inspiration as a highest sadhana, so that slowly you move up to that level. But practically, when the solutions are given, the guru will always focus on the relative principles, the level at which the student is. So for the guru, the tiger is also the dream. If the tiger mauls you, the mauling is also a dream. The pain which you experience will also be a dream only. But for you, it will not be a dream. The tiger is real. The pain will be very much real. You will suffer so much. Therefore, the solution which he is offering is climb up the tree. So you can't mix up levels and say, on one hand you are saying this is a dream, on the other hand you are asking me to climb the tree. Why, sir? Because of the difference in levels. That statement was made at one level, this statement is made at another level. So on one hand you will find these great masters making statements like, you are the infinite, Tattvamasi, that you are. Your only purpose in life is to merge with the infinite. On the other hand, the same masters will say, do karma, do actions, take care of your family, do your duties properly, eat the right kind of food, get up as early as possible, do the sadhana. Now, if I am the Supreme Self already, if I am the infinite, then why do I need to follow all this? That is mixing up levels. This is said at one level, that is said at another level. It's a good question because it opens up the context based on which I can give you the deeper principle of mixing up levels. That is, you should not mix up levels. So as a sadhak, be very, very clear whenever you keep gaining this wisdom, what is the level from which this statement is being made. So whenever a statement is made from the absolute level, use it for your inspiration, to increase your inspiration and increase your bhavana towards the highest. Whenever a practical tip is given, use it to apply it in your life. Don't try to straight away practice what is being given at the highest level. Then you will lose sight of practicality, you will only be talking big, but you will never grow spiritually. Is this clear? Think about this, and if you have any questions, you can ask further, because this is such an important aspect of your sadhana. So you will all the time, you will be finding the Guru giving so-called contradictory statements, but they will not be contradictory if you understand the context, if you understand the levels from which the statements are being made. Sometimes they may say there is nothing in wealth. Sometimes they may say, no, you should acquire more wealth. You can't stand there and say, now tell me one thing, should I acquire wealth or not? It all depends upon the context only. Sometimes he may say gain knowledge, sometimes he may say act. The context is very, very important. Okay? So now we'll do the meditation. I'll be installing the principles which were given out today. Very powerful principles of uniting the bhavana with the actions. So I'll be installing them in your deeper minds so that will help you to practice. So relax completely. Keep your spine straight. Gently close your eyes. Do deep breathing. With every breath, I'm getting into a state of deep relaxation. With every breath, I am going deeper and deeper into myself. Beyond this body, beyond this mind, beyond this intellect, lies my true self, the infinite reality. From this moment onwards, I choose to purify my bhavana, intention and attitude in each and every action which I perform. I choose to align my actions to my positive bhavana. I let go this tendency to be a daydreamer. I let go this tendency to be a complainer. I am the creator of my destiny. I am the creator of my life. Offer your gratitude to God Supreme. Offer your gratitude to your Guru and all the holy masters. Slowly come back. Wriggle your fingers, your toes, rub your palms together to create a warmth. Cup your eyes with your palms. Gently rub your eyes, cheeks, forehead, top of the head, back of the head and neck. Slowly open your eyes. Welcome back. So it's a very powerful principle which has been given to you today. Now absorb this and start practicing it in your life. You will find a tremendous change. Wherever you practice this principle, you will find that the circumstances in that area will start changing soon, because you will be changing the energy pattern completely, especially now that you've been empowered with the Prana Tattva level 1. your capacity will be much more. And this will further increase your purity, and it will prepare you for higher empowerments. So I have also received several requests from some sadhaks requesting some advice. One person has said her grandmother is not well and she has been hospitalized. Another person has said that her brother met with an accident and he's having a surgery. So what should we do? That is what has been asked. Now the best thing is if you can play the Yoga Sankirtan to them, even if they are in the hospital. You can ask you can talk to the doctors and arrange for the Yoga Sankirtan to be played at least once a day, so that the healing will be speeded up. Apart from whatever the treatment which the doctors are giving, this will further intensify the healing process. One important thing is, kindly don't give your personal sadhana copy to anybody, because I have explained to you many a times, you're building an energy flow with your material. So ask them to get a separate copy for this purpose, and that can be played. If the person is bedridden or something, see whether the headphones can be used and this can be played, or even with a little bit of external volume, if it can be played there, if it's a private room. So this is very important. That is the best which you can do to a person who is suffering from some disease, and especially to those people who are hospitalized. Because when you are hospitalized, no doubt at the external level all the treatment is being given, but psychologically that person will be down. They'll be seeing other patients and all that, and they'll get a feeling that I am a patient. So all these thoughts actually impede the flow of healing. So when the Yoga Sankirtan is done, that removes all these factors and expedites the healing process. Even if that person has not done the sadhana of Yoga Sankirtan earlier, that is okay. Because when you're completely down, generally such people will be in a surrender mode. So when you play the Yoga Sankirtan, they will be able to easily absorb the vibrations. Okay, so kindly do that and help them. That is the best you can do. We generally stop with the physical treatment. That is not enough. This will purify them from the internal level also, and from the even physically, from the intracellular level, the self-healing capacity of the body will be opened up, Okay. So we will go into further depth in the coming weeks. Thank you very much. Hari Om.